It's up to you.
All right, I got to say that it's kind of nice. I've been all over the state. I've been to Cheyenne, I've been to Cody, been down to Rock Springs, and even though I'm from Gillette, I see some familiar faces, Hardy and et cetera, and it's kind of like coming home a little bit, but as much as a Gillette kid can say he feels home in Sheridan. You know, when I was a little kid, I'm the youngest of 9 children, and my parents, my mother was a Democrat, or is a Democrat, my dad was a Republican, and of course they would kind of bandy about as to, you know, try to get the kids to kind of see things their way. And so we followed politics pretty close, even as young kids. And in 1968, I remember Nixon and Humphrey were up against one another, and my parents were split. My dad was a Nixon supporter, although that only lasted 4 years. In '72, he actually voted for the governor. Of course, my mother was a big Humphrey supporter, and so there was lots of talk about presidential politics, president this, president that. And being a somewhat self-involved 4-year-old at the time, I said to my mom, we were at the dinner table, and I turned to my mother, and I said, well, Mom, you know, all this talk about presidents, do you think someday I could be president? And she looked at me with kind of a frown and said, no, Nick, you can't. However, she's now 81 years old, and I asked her about 6 months ago, I said, Mom, you think I could become a United States Senator? And she said, yeah, Nick, I think you can. All right. What I want to talk about tonight is about being an advocate. And part of what I want to do is just introduce myself to you. I intend to run a statewide race, but I kind of need to give you a little background as to who I am. But I became a lawyer, and I came back to my hometown of Gillette. My family moved to Wyoming when I was 5 years old. We lived in Casper for about 5 years. Then we moved to Gillette. My dad was in the mineral industry with ExxonMobil, or Exxon at that time. And I grew up and graduated from high school in Gillette, went to college, went to University of Wyoming Law School. And when I graduated from law school, I went back to Gillette. And Gillette at that time was not booming like it is now. Things were kind of slow. And I made the, I guess, fateful decision to open my own practice in a rather depressed economy. And so I was a new lawyer in Gillette. There had not been a new law office opened in Gillette in about 14 years at that time, so I was kind of, you know, new, and most of the attorneys were a little older than me. I was 25 or 26 years old, and unfortunately, as an adult, I had to have braces put on my teeth. So I'm a 25-year-old attorney. I've got braces on my teeth. I've got this new office, and to say that I looked like I was 12 would have been an exaggeration, because some 12-year-olds had reached puberty, and I still looked like I was about 9. So I'm not quite there yet. But I was about to go broke, just struggling along as a new attorney, and a poor family walked into my office, and a rather poor family, and they had a daughter, and they were telling me a couple of things. They told me that, first of all, that they had been to 6 other lawyers with this problem, and nobody would help them. After kind of getting over the fact that I was 7th string, I decided to listen to their story. They were renters there in Gillette, and they had been thrown out of their apartment without any sort of legal process. They had a number of belongings in their apartment, and the landlords had taken all their private possessions, and they had taken those to the dump. You know, anything like picture books, baby books, that sort of thing, they just took and disposed of. They did, however, the landlords, keep the furniture and re-rented the apartment as a furnished apartment. What was also troubling about some of the personal items that the landlords had taken was that my client's brother at that time was serving in the Persian Gulf, and all his letters to her disappeared, and he then got killed in the Persian Gulf War, the only Wyoming vet to get killed over in Iraq at that time. I guess the worst of it, at least for the family, was the 4-year-old daughter had a cat, and they had taken the cat to the pound and said that we found this stray cat. The landlords took this cat to the pound and had the cat put down. So I'm a young lawyer, and I'm thinking, well, this is just terrible. You know, I can't imagine that these people could not get an attorney to help them out. So I took the case and I filed my first lawsuit. When I filed the lawsuit, a senior attorney in town that had been around there for about 20 years called me and said, you know, and I won't say his name so that Hardy doesn't give him a hard time next time he sees him, but he said, you know, Nick, when you're a little more seasoned and you understand the law a little better, you'll not file these goofy lawsuits, you know, and I've talked to the insurance company, and we think that this claim for all these people's worldly belongings, getting kicked out without legal process, killing their cat, is worth $1,500. And there's no way here in Campbell County, and Nick, you'll learn this because you're going to practice law here, there's no way that a conservative Campbell County jury, you know, hardcore Republican jury, is ever going to award more than $1,500, and that's what you should take. I didn't see it that way. I thought these people had a case, and so I went to trial, and it was my very first jury trial that I ever had. I had never, and this maybe goes to show how it works in law school, I had never even seen a jury before. I'd never been in front of a jury before. I didn't even exactly know how they were selected. But by asking some other attorneys in town, I kind of got an idea about trying this first jury trial, and I went to trial. The trial went okay, except that the insurance company and the other attorney were right. A Campbell County jury didn't think that all the worldly belongings of an individual family, that their cat, their letters, was worth $1,500. They thought it was worth about $100,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there's something I learned about that. And what it is it's being an advocate for the people. Something that we have sorely missed here in Wyoming for a number of years. The bottom line is the importance of an advocate, and attorneys know that power, but it's not just attorneys that are advocates. There are patient advocates. You know, we have an aging population, and maybe many of you have parents that are in nursing homes or have been hospitalized, and you realize how important it is to advocate for your parents. There's advocates for abused children. There's worker advocates in the unions. There are voter advocates. But a United States senator must be an advocate for Wyoming. Not an advocate for the Republican National Committee, not an advocate for the Democratic National Committee or special interests, but an advocate for the people. And you have to become a tough advocate because a United States Senator is the ultimate advocate, and I think you'd agree with that. That since we are, at least by population, a small state, that you better have somebody up in Washington that takes Wyoming's interests to heart. And Wyoming needs a tough advocate. Wyoming needs a tough senator. I'm here to tell you, if elected, I will be that tough United States senator.
All right.
Tough is not sloganeering. Tough is not cliches. It's not bring it on, like we heard George Bush say in Iraq. Tough is action. Tough is acting now when you have to act. Tough is the rancher or the farmer going out in the middle of the night when the wind's blowing in Wyoming and fixing the fence, fixing the gate when it's got to be fixed. But you know, with all the talk about tough, and I think I've always been a tough lawyer. I feel like I've always been a tough advocate, and I feel like if I'm elected that I'll be a tough senator. But you know, the thing about all the tough talk is that being a Democrat, you can't forget why somebody like me, at least, gets into politics and why we're Democrats, and that's to care for other individuals. You know, kind of like the Bible talks about that which you do for the least of my brethren. That's a principle that the Democratic Party has always held. That is a principle that Wyomingites have always held. And if elected senator, that's a principle that I'll take to Washington, D.C., and I certainly appreciate your support.